Today is a very important day. A huge number of candidates have gathered in this territory to become a knight of the azure sky. Everyone starts comparing themselves to others. Some people boost their self-esteem, while others only start doubting themselves more. Some are discussing how many of those present will become knights of the azure sky, because there is no one who stands out yet. Who said that maybe today no one will be chosen at all, because if there is no title, Master of the Sword, it is impossible to become a full-fledged knight. His friend thought that all knights could be called masters anyway, but he was wrong. So his friend explained something. It's not for nothing that they are called a knightly order that surpasses nations. It's not for nothing that they rule an entire city. The Order of the Azure Sky is strange, where all the knights are masters of the sword. In other countries, there are only a few such masters of the sword, from 10 who wield the sword with force. These sword masters are just ordinary knights. And above them, there are still the monstrous Hyos wielders. That's why top guys flock here, because the mere fact that upon admission you become a candidate for a knight squire is very enticing. And the current commander became the youngest owner of the Gyosa rank Sacred Ball and the youngest commander of the Order of the Azure Sky. The guy still didn't understand almost anything. He got distracted because a girl appeared on the territory, and judging by her appearance, it seems that she got something mixed up and came to the wrong place. And when she said that she came as a candidate, and also that she was going to participate in this form, she immediately attracted even more attention to herself. Everyone looks at her thinking that this is some kind of joke, or maybe she's just bored, because there can't be any other explanation for this. They started discussing her. Supposedly, she wouldn't even be able to hold a sword and how she was going to compete with them equally. Someone joked that she must have confused the place with some ballroom and that she should tell him about it. These two already started to argue about the wish that she would drop the sword and cry. In the end, they changed their minds because they both think so. But that's not all. After her, a man appears who made everyone who looked at him freeze in place. This is the commander of the Order of the Azure Sky. His name is Yuri Kyriak. The guy doesn't come here often, so this is a whole event. They met him, started telling him that something special had happened today, that among the candidates there was an unusual person who didn't quite fit into the whole thing. Yuri didn't react to this at all. He asked to show the candidate, and they suggested that he just look away so that he could figure it out himself. They didn't even have to say anything. The captain noticed a girl who really stood out from everyone else. Those two started saying that she was kind of strange, that she didn't belong there, and the commander just didn't understand why they, without knowing the man, had formed such an opinion about him. He seemed to sense that she was not at all simple and had definitely not come here to amuse everyone. Yuri asked how, in their opinion, she might be worse than someone who seemed like a normal candidate. They replied that, firstly, it was hard to even swing a sword in such an outfit, and secondly, she didn't even remove her hair from her face to make it more comfortable. But what the commander said to this, no one expected this from him. He said it in an absolutely calm voice, that I would bet with great interest that she would pass the exam with the best result, no matter how it sounds. And then the girl swings her sword, pierces the log, and it splits into two parts. It looked very impressive, especially from her. These logs started flying around. Everything looks like some kind of performance. Everyone is standing with their mouths open. Logs started falling from different sides. They stopped perceiving her as a girl who got the wrong address. Now everyone understood that she knew where she was going, and besides, she didn't even have time to put down her sword. The observer turned to her and said that only she was able to pass the selection that day and everyone else could be free. No one understands how this is possible. For them, it is something inexplicable. They already want to meet her. Meanwhile, the commander with the same calm expression asked to quickly bring her documents. Literally in a couple of minutes, they were already in his hands. It was written there that her name was Echinacea Rose. She was 20 years old. She was the eldest daughter of the Count's House Rose from the Empire of Kyrie. The name is taken from the pink flower of the same name, Echinacea. It suits it very well, so much so that once you hear it, you will never forget it. The guy doesn't just show interest in her because she is the one he saw in the future. He knows. Only there, she was not a cadet of the Ajanik, and she did not have pink hair, with which she was a little more beautiful. Meanwhile, the girl had already moved away from that place. She began to talk to her glove, no matter how it sounded. This is something she talks to, thinks that the owner already wants to leave her and calls her heartless. Ikinasha says, of course, why did she come here then? And it says that it is too cruel, because thanks to it, the mistress learned how to turn back time. It also asked her to be more generous and not to cling to the erased past, which no longer has meaning. It's strange to watch her walk down an empty corridor and talk to her hand, which seems to be possessed by someone. Ikinasha is not very happy to hear this interlocutor. She called him a damn demonic sword and asked him to shut up, because if it weren't for him, she would never have had to know this. And that means that she doesn't like him for some reason and is unhappy that he even appeared in her life. A demonic sword that controls its wielder and forces him to destroy, known as the Valder of Gyosa. Since the day this sword appeared before her, she has destroyed with her own hands everyone she madly loved. Even the one person who believed her when she became a demon, and it will never disappear from her memory. Then she thought that she shouldn't hesitate. After all, this is only the beginning. In order to part with this damn ball forever, you must not be distracted by anything else, under any circumstances. First, you should avoid Commander Yuri as much as possible, and focus on joining the Order of the Azure Sky. Even if Yuri remembers, then everything will be fine. The girl thinks that if she changed her image, he will never recognize her. But she doesn't even realize that he recognized her right away, and even managed to read her documents, so she won't hide from him either. Turning back time to 35, she returned to her 20 years, although she could not even imagine that this was possible. A barely acquired second life. This is something incredible. But she knows one thing for sure: you can't sit in the past and have it all happen again, as she wants. This life, luck that did not come easy, and what she won herself. Now the main thing is to use it correctly. The Earl's House of Rose, where she was born, did not have much influence in the Kiri Empire, but was a fairly wealthy and noble family. Loving parents and younger brother, with whom they amicably inherited the title, and their modest and beautiful only daughter. The girl lived a usually happy life, but only until a demonic sword fell into her hands. The demonic sword, Waldergeist, created from the human thirst for destruction, takes over the body of the owner and brings madness. Its power was so great that eventually the body cannot withstand and collapses. Losing the bearer, what was the fate of the demon sword? However, her body was a little different. An insane level of magical compatibility supported the decaying body, and innate abilities were ideal for wielding a demonic sword. So the girl became a genius once in 1,000 years and a sword demon. She still believes to this day that it would have been better if she had never found out. She didn't want to learn about her talent in this way, starting with people dear to her, famous mercenaries, respected sword masters, and all other promising knights. All fell by her hand. Only one thing remains unchanged. No one can surpass and destroy her. Yuri de Hardenkari, although he is the third prince of the empire, but he refused the right of succession and became the commander of the Knights of the Azure Sky, the owner of the sacred sword Rangios. He lived in a completely different world. She only looked at him from afar and sometimes imagined meeting him. But in those fantasies there was no such meeting. Even the commander of the Knights of the Azure Sky is not able to defeat her, and in her head the voice of the demonic sword echoes, telling her to get rid of it, become better, you can do it. In such circumstances, it is very difficult to resist. She has long dreamed of giving in to someone, but it just doesn't work out. If someone defeats her or at least injures her, she, no matter how it sounds, will be very happy about it. She wants someone to finally stop her, to take away all these powers, so that at least for a moment she can feel weak and that there is something impossible in this world. The commander understands perfectly well who he is dealing with. He is as strong as she is, and he also says that if she were a knight, they would be able to sincerely cross. And then the most interesting thing began. Yuri began to offer not just a duel, but a duel for survival, to fight to the end until only one remains alive. His assistants immediately joined him. They volunteered to stand on his side, and he didn't mind. At the time, she was holding up very well against the four of them. Half an hour had already passed. Everyone's strength was running out, and she seemed to have just warmed up. It's incredible, even for a ball demon. She's absolutely invincible, and just one look into her eyes makes you want to give up right away. They have all already come up with several tactics. No matter how they attack her, everything is pointless. Echinacea doesn't even strain itself. In fact, the girl didn't want all this at first, If she knew that it was a demonic sword, she would never have picked it up in her life, being in her right mind. At some point, she had an idea. Why not give in and resist when someone runs at her with a ball? The girl just lay down on the ground, started crying, tried to think about something else, so that at least someone would destroy her. It seems to her that if she consciously participates in a duel, something controls her body and she cannot lose. And so there is every chance to finish with it. She is already scratching her hands, grabbing a sharp blade, and silently showing that they should do this to her. She no longer has the strength to be strong. No matter how it sounds, she wants, like everyone else, to be afraid that someone might hurt her, to look at other strong people and be equal to them, and not all this where nothing is interesting anymore. Meanwhile, she is already so determined to go to the next world that she presses on herself with this sword harder than the enemy. They have probably never seen anything like this before. And in the meantime, the commander begins to use his power, and no one around understands what is happening. They ask him what he is doing, and Yuri replies that he is going to give her some chance. But from these words, nothing is clear anyway. His words, clearly heard amidst the vague conversation, were a ray of light, not sent down as a miracle. Without realizing it, Echinacea began to trust him. She lies calmly in his arms, and she no longer cares what he will do because she herself is already tired of doing anything anyway. After that, when she defeated everyone, she was still imprisoned in the underground prison of the Order of the Azure Sky, and she was not against it. There, the shackles that bound the body suppressed the demonic power of the sword, and this is exactly what everyone needs. Every day she had to fight with her subconscious. She fought with a demonic sword for countless hours, not knowing if it would finally all end. And just as many times she suffered defeat and disappointment every time she realized that everything could have been different. But even in this difficult struggle, she imagined the time after the victory over herself. The girl promised herself. Only when he returns to his body, first he will wash it very thoroughly and fall asleep. He will fall asleep in a soft bed. And the next day she will tidy up her returned pink hair and return to her previous appearance. This is another day when they came to check on her. The commander asks the assistant if everything is okay, and he tells him that today, unfortunately, there are no changes either. In fact, despite everything that is happening here, she wants to meet the one who has a long chance with a smile, to repay those blue eyes that believe in her, to atone for the sins that she committed. Echinacea always knew that she could endure any torment, believing that such a wonderful day would come. However, the day when she would be given a miracle never came, succumbing to the machinations of the demonic sword, starting with the guard who opened the prison door. The owner of Valdergiosa, Varo, evacuated people until the last moment and was destroyed by a demonic ball. The girl tried to give in, but her inner strength won. She easily left this place. The owner, Teresa, also dragged out time until her death and met her end. Although she could have simply not interfered with her and not stood in her way, then at least she would have remained alive. And Dietrich, who tried to run to report the situation, also overestimated his strength and did it in vain. While she has a sword in her hands, everyone in her path becomes an enemy, whom she will not pass by until she destroys. The guy would see something terrible in her eyes. She looked like a monster and seemed scarier than any monster. It's even hard to imagine what they need to do at all, because it turns out that they can only hide from her, because it's dangerous to even get into her field of vision, not to mention pointing your sword at her. Soon Yuri, who had returned from the mission, met with a demonic sword in the destroyed square of Ajenka. The long-awaited meeting with him happened in the most undesirable way, but that's not so important anymore. Even Yuri, renowned for his supreme skill, deep down fears her more than anything else in the world. But in order not to lose his authority, he must appear fearless on the surface. In the end, he too was unable to defeat the demonic sword, whose powers only grew stronger after each death of someone. His gaze that believed in her and watched her never existed again. Since then, she has been left with hatred for the demonic sword that literally controls her consciousness from within. Meanwhile, 2 years have passed since then. 6 years have passed since she was possessed by the demonic sword. The girl got her business back in some small fishing village. Skin with no more black spots, hair that has returned to its original color, a body that moves at her will. Even though she got it all back, those people can't be brought back, and she began to hate that ill-fated sword even more. which only ruins everyone's lives. She has no idea where she should return to now. To whom? Suddenly, the very moment has come when she first heard that very voice. He asked her if she was happy, and it sounded like he was piercing her, because she herself didn't know the answer to that question. The first thing she wanted to know was who was talking to her, and whether she could see his face at least from afar. The voice replied that his name was Valder Galosa, and also admitted that he was the sword that she was holding in her hands. And the fact that she hears his voice means that she has earned the right to become his second master. And he also congratulated her on this. She just heard this word. She started to get indignant because they understand how he dares to congratulate her on something. Because of him, she has now lost the meaning of life. Because of him, there is no one left next to her. Now there is no family, no friends, and not even someone who believed in her. The sword started with the fact that she misunderstood him, and that it was supposedly not him, and then continued. Only she interrupted him and began to warn that one more word and she would break him. The girl simply can't listen to him. She is disgusted by this voice, but he still tries to stop her and ask her to listen to him. He said that there is one way to get everything back, but first she needs to calm down and finally listen to him. The girl said that she would only listen to him if he told her that she had a chance to resurrect everyone she had harmed. To which he replied that he could help turn back time again, although it was not easy, but he could do it for her. After that, he started asking if she had ever heard anything about the legend of Gios. If you collect all 10 Hyos created by humans, you can borrow the power of the divine sword. There is just one thing. You can turn back time only once, no more. So before you do it, you need to think about the steps so that you don't regret this decision later. And after that, she thought, because if she is given such a chance again, it is a huge luck. She thinks that it is definitely not an easy task, and the demonic sword can deceive her. Trusting it is really very doubtful. Then the thought came that if there is even the slightest chance to fix everything, you need to improve and act according to your conscience. So she decided to go back to the past again and resurrect everyone who passed away from her evil hands. Long ago, there lived a blacksmith who dared to challenge God for such impudence. God granted the blacksmith the ability to create swords from something as immaterial as day and night. He spoke the words, "I have given you power equal to mine. Create the greatest sword. This will be my test." Seeing them, God immediately created 2 more swords. These 2 balls surpassed all the creations of the blacksmith in both beauty and strength. And then the blacksmith realized his arrogance. God forgave him and took away the divine world. The 12 swords remaining in the world, according to the ancient word, a test, were called the Gios series. Among them, a divine sword created from time. Meanwhile, he asked the girl how he can help, to which she replied that it took her 9 years to get here. And after that, she asked to return her to the past, where everyone was still alive, untouched by her hands. The sword asked why she needed it, because it is not enough to voice a request. It is less necessary to understand whether it is worth it or not. Ikinicha explained that she would very much like to bring back to life those who died undeservedly and should have lived. The sword asked how she could be so careless about the lives of others, and now asks to correct the mistake, like some crooked drawing that can be corrected. The girl started yelling at him that she didn't want to do it. She didn't want to explain anything just because she was ashamed. He replied that he basically understood her request, and then he began to remain silent, as if he was deciding whether she deserved his help or not. Echinasha is worried because if he decides to refuse, it means that the lump in her soul will remain with her for the rest of her life. And every next day, she will blame herself for the fact that, because of her, some people did not live their full lives. After that, the next question arose. What will she do in a world where everyone will be alive? How will her course of action change, and is she sure that she will be able to control herself next time? In fact, she somehow didn't think about where she would start if she managed to return to the past. She just had a goal in front of her to do it, and then we'll see. She simply promised him that she would live a normal life and that not a single soul would die because of her. Now she can't sleep peacefully. She doesn't remember the last time she smiled, and something needs to be done about it urgently because it can just drive her crazy. She just exists as an empty shell. But if she can come back and change everything, life will sparkle with new colors. This is what she dreams about now. So if he gives her this chance, she will definitely use it to the maximum. A lot of time passed, but he still decided to help her. The sword will lend her its power, but he warned her in advance that there will be no second chance. She must try to find happiness, no matter what it costs. At that moment, she felt something unusual inside, as if she was being pulled by a magnet somewhere else. At first, she heard the sound of swords, which was very familiar to her, and only then she realized that she was lying on a bed, and there was no one nearby. It was just a sound from the window, and in the meantime, the girl calmly opens her eyes. She remembers very well what she saw before she teleported, but she still does not fully realize that she still got what she wanted. She began to listen to the sounds, noticed the familiar ceiling, was happy with her long pink hair, but for some reason, instead of waking up calmly, she began to climb onto the balcony. And then she jumped from there. Only from the outside, it looked like she could easily crash and lose her chance at this life. She doesn't care now whether she's in pain or not. The main thing is that her arms and legs are finally obeying her, and her body seems to be completely under her control. Here she is already running somewhere, right as she woke up. She started running because she had simply indescribable sensations. She absolutely loved the feeling that she could do everything the way she wanted, and so far nothing had happened that she could regret. On the way, she was met by an assistant, but the girl didn't even hear how she greeted her. Everything was as if in a fog. In fact, she just runs to her brother to feel that her whole family is alive and that they are all nearby. The brother noticed her very quickly. He didn't expect to see her here at such a time, and she pounced on him as if this was the last time they would see each other. March 17, 1629 of the Divine Era, she returned to the day she took up the demonic sword. The girl burst into tears, didn't say anything to her brother, just hugged him, then left as if nothing had happened, and now her assistant is helping her to tidy herself up. She says that the lady scared her very much from the very morning. Usually, she never walked around the estate in the morning without even washing her face, and especially without makeup. And yet, she wonders why the lady got up so early, because it's not like her at all. She has only one option why it happened. Echinacea, maybe. She feels unwell. And also reminded me how the girl herself said that she couldn't fall asleep at dawn and asked someone to stay with her. The lady doesn't remember anything like that happening. She wasn't embarrassed to ask about it, and the assistant was very surprised that she managed to forget something like that. It all started with the lady not being able to sleep and asking for warm milk to be brought, and then she began to have memories that everything was somehow exactly like on that day when she took the sword. When at dawn, she went to the kitchen with a bang and didn't come back. So she went there herself to see what or who was holding her up. It was there that Echinacea met not the kind and devoted girl she had come to know, but Nora, possessed by a demonic sword. She no longer remembers how she managed to miraculously dodge her attack. It turned out to be something impossible, but a miracle happened. When the girl came to, in front of her lay a sword that had fallen from Nora's hands, and then she was simply forced to take it in order to survive. Of course, she did it. But if the same situation happens again, she won't even touch him no matter what happens. The girl asked if the assistant noticed anything strange. At first, she didn't understand what it was about. Then she looked away and understood. The lady says that there was some empty package in the kitchen that she had not seen before and asked if he had an assistant with him. She replied that, yes, she wanted to give his palace to someone since she doesn't know where it came from. And Echinacea asked to give it to her and said that she would deal with it herself. The lady can see very well that it is exactly the size of the demon sword, which means that someone left it in the kitchen on purpose. But there is no demon sword inside, so the past where Nora took it has changed. At that moment, she turned to the voice and asked why it was still with her, even after she had returned to the past again. She noticed it from the drawing on her hand, but it is not clear what it means and why the sword symbol is still with her, and she has not even touched it. Nora returned to ask if the lady would be having breakfast with everyone else in the dining room, as the kitchen would need to be notified for that. The girl asked who it was with everyone, to which the assistant replied that today the lady was kind of strange, and her questions too. Then she explained that since she usually has breakfast with her mother, father, and brother, there would be no one else at breakfast today. And in the meantime, she is already at the table with everyone. This moment is so long awaited that she wants to slow it down to enjoy every second. Father started saying that Nicholas was supposed to arrive tomorrow. It was a special day for them, so they needed to get ready. The boy was happy that he was finally given a vacation in the magic tower. He had wanted to play with it for a long time and does not believe that this will happen soon. Mom told him that before thinking about it, he needed to dry his hair properly. She didn't follow this and decided to hint to him that after washing, he needed to stand out well before going to the dining room. This is how they teach him etiquette, using a life situation as an example. And then they remember that their daughter is not talkative at all. She sits to the side and doesn't even say a word. And she didn't sit for a single bite, and she sits so sadly as if she was forbidden to touch food. In fact, she somehow didn't think that when she met her relatives, instead of positive emotions, memories would emerge that would make her want to cry. For some reason, when she ran up to her brother today, she was the happiest, but now everything somehow turned out differently than it could have been. She can't even look calmly at her parents or brother, as if she has come to terms with the fact that they are not alive, and still thinks that they are not alive. At that moment, she pulled herself together and confessed from the bottom of her heart that she missed them madly, although she understood that they probably didn't even realize how much meaning there was in those words and with what pain she said them. They just laughed at her because they saw each other yesterday and with her brother even this morning. But she doesn't care about that because the main thing is that she feels now. It was obvious to her that they wouldn't understand her anyway, but she really needed to tell them these words. Mom even thought that she had a bad dream, and that's why she was behaving like that. She replied that everything was like that, because telling them something doesn't make sense. They won't believe it anyway. The lady even felt a little angry with herself. How could she not notice such valuable moments before? She took such breakfasts for granted, and this was the most precious thing that needed to be appreciated. In the meantime, she had already gotten a little more comfortable, returned to the room, made sure that no one would come to her, and began to test her strength. There was some kind of magical atmosphere around. The room was filled with crazy energy, in the good sense of the word. Although the accumulated power is still very small, it is gratifying that the core of power has at least formed correctly. She has a feeling as if she is on the right path and even understands what to do next. Although literally this morning there was no such thing, something that only Knights of the Sword Master rank can create, a storehouse of power within the body. In her past lives, having a power core was natural for her, but now she lost sight of the fact that this body doesn't have one. Besides, she was overexerted in this state. It is not surprising that she got tired so quickly by the evening, so it does not upset her much. In the meantime, she still goes to get answers to her questions, such as why the demon sword is still attached to her. She really doesn't want this to continue, and it's still unclear how she can communicate with him, so she asked him this question in the hope that he would help her at least with this. He says that it should be so, because even when time turned back, her soul remained the same, and she should have understood it herself. And he also said that he is a Gyosa, marked by her soul, and she remembers everything because she is the mistress of the Gyosa. To which she asked him if it really turns out that if she gets rid of him, she will lose all her memories, and he said that she understood everything correctly. Then the girl asked what about the other Geos, because she had 10 of them. He says that she did not awaken the essence of other Hyos. A person becomes a real owner only after awakening the essence, and he is the only Hyos. She awakened the essence. Without him, she would again become that innocent lady who knew nothing about the past. And then he added that this meant that if he wanted, he could devour her again. This is not the most pleasant thing she could hear from him, although it would be strange to expect anything else. She doesn't like this voice anymore. Ikanasha decided for herself that she will think about it very carefully, because making any decisions in the heat of the moment can be dangerous. At that moment, she began to reason that in addition to the loss of memory and the possibility of losing herself again if she lost her vigilance, this sword would consume her and force her to make a mistake again. If she can't get rid of the demon ball, she will never be able to achieve the happy life she dreams of. Where all the found Hyos are kept, in the Hyos Hall, deep in the Order of the Azure Sky, she will be able to obtain a new Hyos and finally seal this demonic sword forever. There are only 3 ways to get there. The first is when the missing Gyosu is found and deposited. The second, when the owner of the Hyos dies or retires and returns it. And the third, when a full-fledged Knight of the Order of the Azure Sky is given the opportunity to choose a Gyosu If she manages to get into the Gyos Hall, then this will be the third option, but there is one problem. Meanwhile, she asks the sword if other Hyos owners can also retain their memories, to which he replies that he has no way of knowing if they have awakened the essence of their Hyos. In the Order of the Azure Sky, there are 4 owners of Gyos: Deputy Commander Baron, Teresa Dietrich, and Commander Yuri. The sword says that they can all see the past, which means that since Yuri remembers everything, he hates her so much that he might want to get rid of her. The girl thought that she shouldn't have expected anything else because after the betrayal, he clearly wouldn't have greeted her with a smile. So she decided that she needed to find a way to get into the Order of the Azure Sky without catching the eye of the owners of the Geos, who can remember everything. Then she looked in the mirror and for some reason thought, as if another idea had come to her that she could use. Echinacea realized something obvious. She was remembered as a villain with dark hair, and her current appearance is very different from her previous one. She felt calmer because now she has nothing in common with the man who became an enemy for many. Here she is again in the same place, unaware that no matter what she looks like, she will be recognized in any form. Echinacea is completely sure that such a lady cannot arouse suspicion in anyone. She can only be condemned for her inappropriate appearance. But this is not the main thing. Meanwhile, she is already saying that since it happened this way, she will study hard at Ajenka. All her servants cannot believe these words because, at the very least, hearing such things from her is a bit strange. They do not match the person's appearance, what he says and does, but she no longer cares because now she has only one goal: not to repeat past mistakes. The girl leaves, says goodbye, has already packed all her things, but no one fully realizes that this is happening right now, at this very second, and it is unclear to them why she needs this, because she could simply live a luxurious life, not deny herself anything, and not strain herself. A few days before leaving for Ajenka, the girl had already taken precautions. She asked her sister to investigate the origin of the demon sword while she dealt with it herself. The girl has another very important mission, which she clearly did not expect to receive immediately after returning from vacation. While Echinacea will not be here, the sister must protect the family and all the people in the Count's house. Sure. The girl asks if the lady realizes how serious her situation is, since there is no guarantee that the sword will not subjugate her to its will again, and also asked what Echinacea is going to do in Ajenka, and hopes that she does not intend to go to the Knights of the Azure Sky and say that she is the owner of the demonic sword. She replied that she hadn't even told her family about this, and wasn't going to. Only her sister knew about it, and no one else. She doesn't understand where such trust in her came from. Is it because she is the best magician? Probably not only because of this. In fact, there is one very good reason, but the girl cannot say it out loud. The point is that her sister is the only one who was able to wound the demonic sword, but she herself does not know about it yet. She only told her that she had no one to trust except her, so the choice was obvious. Although her sister didn't quite believe it, she pretended as if she had no questions for her. Now it's interesting to know how Echinacea is going to get to the Knights of the Azure Sky. Geniuses who have studied fencing all their lives flock there. The question is, will the lady cope at what level? The girl replied that there was no need to worry about it, because she was a genius better than all of them. And at the end, she smiled that there was no doubt about it at all now. Here she is, already sitting having lunch among all these knights, as usual. She is the center of attention. Only most people around her already dislike her. It is very difficult for her to ignore these heavy looks, especially during meals when she wants to feel comfortable and not think that someone is watching from the side. She thought that she would be able to have a quiet lunch and go about her business, but everything turned out a little differently. A girl named Alice Winterbell approached her. They would be sharing a room with her, and the neighbor also apologized for disturbing her during a meal. She says she really wants to discuss something, if the lady doesn't mind, considering this whole situation where she's like on stage. She greeted her, asked what was the matter, expected to hear something serious, and Alice asked, "What is this pile of things in the room? There is a whole mountain of luggage." The girl immediately realized that it was her clothes and jewelry, because even she thinks that it is too much. The neighbor didn't come to complain about it. She just wants to give advice and tell about the rules. The thing is that a cadet whose goal is to become a knight doesn't need so much, and Echinacea didn't take these words seriously. She replied that she needed it and she wasn't going to get rid of anything. At least the reason is that she is not going to wear such a terrible cadet uniform, then apologized if it might sound too offensive. Moreover, there is not a single prohibition on wearing dresses in the charter. Alice responded to this by saying that this is not really knightly. In that case, Echinacea asked what already in Alice's opinion, then in a knightly way. She began by saying that, firstly, it is worth observing the knightly code. It is also important to know honor, to be modest, to respect the weak, and to honor the art of war. After this, she cited one person as an example to follow, Miss Therese von Frank-Almery. The girl continued to argue with her. She says that in the knightly code she did not see a ban on jewelry, and asked what Alice could say about this. She answered that this is luxurious vanity, and that says it all. Echinacea smiled and said that these were things that she had used before, and that she thought it would be more wasteful to buy knightly clothes when she had enough of her own. Alice can't take it anymore. She has one last argument left, that it is impossible to do fencing normally in such clothes, and the uniform was designed to avoid such a problem. It is very comfortable. The body breathes and does not sweat. The lady answered absolutely calmly that she has no such problems, although in fact she sometimes feels very uncomfortable and wants to change her dress for something else. But now she still defends her opinion and is not going to make concessions. The neighbor does not understand how such a person could become the best student in the course and how she has not been expelled yet. Although they didn't really quarrel, there is still some hostility between them, which is written on each of their faces. Echinacea thought that if her neighbor would constantly pick on her like that, it would get boring very soon. So she needed to knock some of this assertiveness out of her. The girl said loudly that if Alice didn't believe, they could have a duel right now in this form, and she would show that you can feel good in a dress during a duel. Alice asked if the girl really means that even with someone like her, it won't be difficult for her to deal with even in a dress. Supposedly, it will still be easy in any form. Echinacea apologized if it sounded wrong. She explained that she didn't mean to offend anyone, and then said what she meant, that she was confident that she could defeat Mrs. Winterbell. In that case, the neighbor officially challenged the girl to a duel and warned that if she won, someone would have to apologize for the offensive words. And also, she will no longer wear such luxurious clothes, while everyone is forced to wear the same. Echinacea accepted the challenge and set her conditions that if she won, Alice would never interfere in her affairs again and would sometimes have to compliment her on how good she looked. In the end, they quickly agreed to duel tonight on the training ground behind the dorm. And then some guy comes out to them. He says that everything sounds very interesting, and if they both don't mind, then he would like to be a witness. Echinacea had never seen him before, so she asked who he was with that look, as if she already wanted to refuse him. The guy replied that his name was Ivan. He was a third-year student, and as a representative of the cadets, he believed that he was ideal for the role of witness. Alice told him that she was very glad to meet him. Personally, she wouldn't mind making him a witness, but it was already obvious that she had lost her mood. Since lunch was already over, in order not to waste time, he said that he would then wait for them in the evening at the training ground and hoped that no one would change their minds. In fact, Echinacea agreed, thinking it was better to deal with it right away. One can only hope that it will not create unnecessary problems. While there were still people around, the sword seemed to have decided to throw wood on the fire. He began to talk, said that he had not seen blood for a long time, and was already impatient to see someone's fear in the eyes. The girl couldn't answer him anything because that guy started talking to her. He heard that she distinguished herself from the first day and had wanted to talk to her for a long time. She asked him if he really had any business with her, with a hint as if she had no time for it now. He replied that it was nothing special. He just wanted to invite her to join their club, and at first the girl didn't understand what kind of club it was. He saw from her face that she didn't know what it was, and said that if necessary, he could explain everything. Since she is a first-year student, it is quite normal. Among the cadets, there are those who come unprepared. He asked if she knew that at the military academy there are no regular classes and exams. Instead, they have a ranking system. Every 3 months, all cadets participate in a tournament to determine new ranks. In addition, if a student wants to change his rank, he can challenge someone to a personal duel and win. She says she knows it and thought she remembers that ranks are the basis of the Ajenka Academy. Students of the Ajenka Academy through ranked battles take turns becoming temporary squires of knights. A squire here is like a squire for real knights. But unlike ordinary servants, they take care of weapons, armor, and horses, help in training and battles. And if they're lucky, they might get some fencing advice, which is also very valuable. If the knights do not specifically appoint a squire, then the distribution occurs according to the ranks obtained in the tournament. To become a temporary sky war for the best knights, you need to have a high rank, so students are so eager to prepare for ranked battles, but it is difficult to improve your skills alone. You need a partner for sparring. That's why clubs appeared. They train together, find mentors. Usually students decide on a club before enrolling. She wondered how necessary it was because she hadn't heard much about it before. Replied that not at all, but many will want to get her, since she was not only the first to enter, but also special, so there will definitely be tough competition for her. After that, she also asked if there was any special reason other than first place. He handed her some kind of package, said that she could look at it, and then she would immediately understand everything. Out of the blue, he says she's been appointed squire, and all those who were secretly eavesdropping on this conversation fell silent, because it had never happened before that a knight personally chose a person from the first year. Naturally, everyone began to suspect that he could simply like her, and it was not at all about her skills. She also has the same question. What kind of madman could appoint her as his squire? And the girl also wondered if all the owners of the Gyasa remember her. But then I realized that this couldn't be, because if it were so, they would have already tried to destroy her or arrest her. She didn't plan to get close to real knights. Everything turns out somehow unexpectedly. She no longer has time to control the situation. And then the guy says that this decision was made by Lord Yuri, and it is absolutely not subject to discussion. Finally, he briefly explained what was going on. A probationary period, a month, then a permanent appointment. And during the probationary period, he would conduct preliminary training. The guy also said that tomorrow at 9 in the morning, she needs to come to the 4th training ground to the east of the main building. After making sure that she had no more questions, he wished her a good day and reminded her that he was waiting for her at the site in the evening. And then her thoughts went into complete chaos. Yuri chose her as his squire. But why? Was it because she got in first or overdid it on the second exam? Or maybe it was much worse. What if he somehow recognized her? If so, then she doesn't understand even more why he needs it. She betrayed his trust and ruined everything, even though Echinacea wanted to see him, but she didn't think that it would happen under such circumstances. Being a squire means being around Yuri all the time, so there's a higher risk that he'll recognize her. And in the meantime, evening came. She had already arrived at the appointed place, but she still didn't fully understand what she thought about it. She didn't have time to understand whether she needed it or not. What was the benefit, or, on the contrary, the disadvantages? But she came anyway, especially since she promised that Ivan and Alice met her. Only the girl was in no mood. Apparently, she still had some leftovers from that conversation. Everyone who wanted to see this gathered. The opponents stood opposite each other, and Ivan said that the first move would be for Cadet Alice, as the initiator of this duel. In the end, he only said that let the winner be merciful and magnanimous, and the loser humble and submissive. The fight has begun. The two participants are properly prepared, and Echinacea still doesn't realize that it is taking part in this. Instead of simply getting down to business, the girl began by greeting the noble ladies as if she were starting not a duel, but some kind of dance at a ball. Everyone started to discuss her. Some people like the girl, some don't. But she just doesn't pay attention to anyone. While Alice is very aggressive, she is absolutely focused. Echinacea feels absolutely harmonious and trusts her instincts. She even dodges so gracefully that it is very pleasant to watch from the side. But Alice only gets angrier from this. She is very annoyed that the enemy does not attack and does not allow himself to be hit, as if in this way he is deliberately tiring the opponent out. At some point, she couldn't take it anymore. She decided to move away some distance to run up and deliver the decisive blow because she thought that things wouldn't go that way. Alice asks if the girl isn't concentrating on the fight because she hasn't attacked her yet. Echinacea looked at her as if she was about to regret what she said, and more than once. She said that if Alice insists on it and is waiting for it to happen, then so be it. She will do it, but she advises to defend herself very well. She ran up so fast as if she had teleported and began to attack with even a glance, which made the enemy lose his balance. Her legs started shaking. She didn't have time to notice how the girl ran up to her so quickly, and she already began to regret that she provoked her. Alice thinks that even if it was a normal conclusion, it would still be very difficult to react. But she definitely blocked it, as if from a fencing textbook. And the more she looks at it, the more she sees honestly the technique, as well as the character. And Ikanesha notices that all the enemy's movements are too predictable. It seems like she is sticking to her only strategy and is unable to adapt to the situation. And she also constantly attacks at the same pace. At that moment, the girl knocks the sword out of Alice's hands. It was so impressive that even Alice herself was amazed at how it looked. So she realized that there was no point in resisting anymore. She just looks at the echinacea, although she doesn't admit it to herself, but still, she admires it. The girl came closer to her, brought the sword to her neck, and asked if Alice wanted to tell her anything or could even promise. She replied that she would not interfere in her affairs in the future and apologized for underestimating her all this time. All those people who came to watch the fight were upset because they expected to see something more unusual. But these two parted so calmly, as if they were still friends. Only Ivan is glad that they both weren't hurt and everything went so well without any unpleasant incidents. Alice thanked everyone who came to see this, and then said that if no one objected, she needed to leave first. The guy wanted to please her with something so much that he decided to tell her, right now, since the duel was held before the rating of this world, it would not affect her personal rating in any way. Meanwhile, he tells Echinacea that only 3 times, the number of times she acted as temporary squire of the commander. He is not prone to impulsive decisions, so it was easy to follow him. Rational judgment, respect for order, the real owner of the sacred ball. Meanwhile, the girl still did not understand why he said all this. She just listened to him, and after that he started talking about how it would be very interesting to know the reason why the commander appointed her a squire, because she had only been here for a couple of days, and it was very unfair to others. He even suggested that she might have some kind of connection with him, but when she heard this, she immediately made it clear that she didn't want to talk about it. The last thing she needed was for Ivan to suspect something. She replied that she herself doesn't really understand why he made such a choice, because she also believes that others are more worthy of this decision. Before contacting her, he reminded her that they had a meeting at 9 in the morning tomorrow, and he would be waiting for her. And he looked at her with such an unpleasant smile that it immediately reminded him of something. 3 years from here, the day when she, possessed by a demonic sword, turned the Ajenka into ruins. Ivan Pellet, whom she met, was a knight of Ajenka. In her memories, he was a good-natured, smiling man, and a villain who showed his disgusting nature. To gain time to escape, from small children to helpless old people, he sent all people towards the demonic sword. For this, she really wants to take revenge on him, after all. He must answer for this. And in the meantime, she said goodbye to him and said that they would see each other tomorrow. Meanwhile, the girl came to the city center, and the sword asked where she is in such a hurry and why they are here. She replied that it was very simple. When she saw that man, she felt disgusted and wanted to come here to relax and look at something beautiful. He started to joke with her, and she asked him to shut up because she can no longer hear this voice, and if it were possible, she would gladly turn it off for a while, or even forever. She also really wants to see happy people. She also dreams of living a carefree life, not having enemies, just enjoying every day and every second. She enjoys looking at the buildings that are not destroyed, the children, and in general, this whole peaceful view, which is very calming. This is the place that inspires. But if you don't correct all your previous mistakes, soon this place too will be destroyed. The problem is that this sword can read her thoughts, and as soon as she thinks how good it is here, how she has long dreamed of being here, it starts saying that she is somehow boring. She already wanted to answer him something, but in time she noticed a man who saw her from afar and decided to approach her. This is a very unexpected meeting. She didn't even think that this was possible, and her legs are already starting to shake. Ikanesha tries to act like everything is fine, but feels like he might already have it all figured out. The first thing he asked her was whether she knew him or not. The girl thought that if he was asking about it, then she had a chance to act as if it wasn't so. She told him that she didn't quite understand who he could have confused her with, and that she was seeing him for the first time in her life. And after that, she asked how he could know her. And then the most interesting part began after a few minutes of pause. He says in a very serious voice that actually she should know who he is, and it's strange to him that it's not so. Her blood pressure is already rising. Her heart is pounding. Some kind of panic is appearing in the feeling that she is already trapped. He tells her that they actually saw each other at her birthday party last summer, and he's upset that she didn't remember. Ikenashi was finally able to relax. She was already talking to him much more calmly and asked how it was. He said that although he didn't know who she was, he remembered seeing her, and judging by her answer, he realized that she apparently didn't notice him. She had to pretend that she remembered him so that he wouldn't get upset, and she herself was already starting to get confused in her words. The guy asked her not to call him Commander. It would be better if she addressed him by his first name. And just in case she doesn't remember his name, he said he was Yuri and asked her to finally remember that name. She started telling him that she was actually just a cadet and couldn't treat him like he was her roommate. After that, he started asking why she entered the military academy. Obviously, he was asking about it because of her appearance. But if she was in some kind of uniform, he would never have asked this. The lady replied that everything is very simple. She just wants to become a knight. This is her most important dream, and she is slowly but surely moving towards it. She says that she loves swords and everything connected with them, and doesn't notice how he has already come much closer. Yuri gently touched her hand. At that moment, she just had a storm of emotions, because she can't understand what it means. If it was a stranger, everything would be very easy, but this is the situation with the asterisk. Yuri is so gentle with her that it seems to calm her down. But on the other hand, it is very stressful, because this could also be a trap. He also said that her hands did not at all resemble the hands of a person who enjoys fencing. At this point, they could have changed the subject, but he began to check on her as if he was David and asked again, why does she want to become a knight? At that moment, he squeezed her hand a little, as if hinting that it would be better to tell the truth. Any reason could have been invented, but for some reason she didn't want to lie to him. The lady explained that she just wanted to be happy. She didn't deceive him in part, but she didn't tell him the truth either. Thanks to this, she managed to maintain a more or less confident appearance and not worry. She even said that she is absolutely sincere with him now, which means that she decided to go all the way, even if he knows something. After that, the girl asked him why he came here, and he answered the question with a question, asked what she was doing here on the first day of school. Ikenashi understands that it would be strange to answer that she came to check the fountain, so she said that she was just walking and wandered here. He says he has exactly the same reason, and it sounds like some kind of check is going on. This is some kind of strange coincidence. She already understands that he may not be sincere and is only pretending as if this was a chance meeting. On the day when he appointed the villain as his squire to come to this place, somehow it was very strange. At first, the girl thought that he really didn't remember anything, and then she said that she heard that he had appointed her his squire. If he knows and pretends, she needs to know what his goal is, and it is impossible to know without such questions. Out of the blue, he approached her formally and then suggested a duel, although this was never usually the case. At first, she thought that she was just imagining things, but since that was the case, she needed to think it all through very carefully in advance, so that later, suddenly, the situation would not only get worse. He offers to arrange it when it is convenient for her. He does not rush, at least this makes her happy, because he could say that they can do it right now. And also he took off his jacket, put it on her shoulders so that she would not be so cold. And after that, he said that when asked why he chose her as a squire, will answer immediately after their fight, unless of course she is afraid, forgets, or runs away somewhere. Since the night is very cold today, he suggested ending this walk, said goodbye, and left. The sword immediately spoke to her. He also noticed that something was wrong here and advised not to relax. You never know. The next morning, yesterday's conversation still remained in her head. She replays the conversation over and over again. It would seem that it was just a guess, but maybe he wants to keep her close and keep an eye on her because it will be very convenient. Ikenashi is already confused in her own thoughts. She just doesn't like that she understands that he is up to something, but she has no idea what exactly and what his goal is. She can't believe that all this is a coincidence, that she was given so many opportunities and attention from the very beginning, and that a person like him is rarely on the street, and at a time like yesterday. Other than the fact that he knows everything and wants to keep her close, she has no explanation for his behavior. What will he do if he is convinced that she is the demon of the cursed sword? At least he will not smile at her like yesterday. While she was thinking about this, she didn't hear at all how someone came up to her. And it was Alice, and she had something in her hands. She says that although she promised not to interfere after the defeat, she still has something to say, or rather, to ask. She wants to know if Akinashi left this on the floor to show off, and then said that she doesn't have to answer because it's all clear, and also that there was no need for this, because she already knew that she had become a squire. The lady did not have time to answer her. Alice, not hearing anything, began to leave. It was as if she didn't want to talk. She just said everything she wanted, and that was enough for her. In fact, the girl treats her normally. She understands that Alice is not delighted with her being here. She must be very annoyed now, but she still holds up well. Most of all, she told herself that even though she couldn't do anything about it, she needed to focus on what she had to do. Meanwhile, she had already arrived at the site. As they had agreed, so far, nothing bad had happened. Ivan met her. She also said hello to him, but she was already irritated by his smile. The guy suggested that she meet another person with whom she would spend some time. On this day, a third-year student, Boris, will take over her preliminary training instead of Ivan. Personally, he is very happy that he has had such an opportunity. He does not hold back his emotions and shows with his whole appearance that he is satisfied with everything. He even came closer to her, started showing interest and said a few compliments, without even noticing whether she liked it or not. He started by saying that since she would officially become a squire in a month, she needed to make the most of this time and prepare for that moment with all responsibility. And after that, he asked her not to worry, because he is here to teach her this. Although there is nothing wrong with these words, but she already feels uncomfortable with him. Meanwhile, Ivan left them alone, and in order not to waste time, Boris suggested starting the lesson. To begin with, he asked to be called Lord, since this is the basis, and Akinashi began to grasp everything on the fly. She imagined that she would have to remember something, try, and he started ordering her to massage his legs. The girl asks how this is related to learning, to which he says that she wears a skirt, pretends not to understand anything, but for him everything is obvious, that she just needs to pick up a knight and marry someone. Only it sounded so that she immediately wanted to punch him in the face for saying such words. He started to allow himself to say things that usually lead to severe punishment. It's strange that he doesn't mind that she can do this. She wants to tell him a lot now, but for now she doesn't even know where to start and how to behave correctly. Apparently it was not for nothing that she felt that he was a very unpleasant person. He was already hinting that if she did not serve him, it would not be easy for her here. While collecting Hyos, Ikanesha thought that she had heard all possible insults in the mercenary squad. But as it turned out, these were just the tip of the iceberg. This is already too low. She will not allow him to treat her like this, because at the very least, he is nobody to her. At this point, the sword turns to her and asks how angry she is right now, as if provoking her to do something to this person. He offers to use his power to take revenge for such words and says that it is to tolerate. It is not to respect yourself. He begs her not to endure, just to do what she wants, to listen to her heart, and, in the end, to defend her honor. Echinacea started by asking if it seemed to him that he was speaking to her a little rudely, and after all, they were seeing each other for the first time in their lives. Then, so that he would think that she agreed to obey him, she lifted her dress, but it was just like a distraction, nothing more. He was so engrossed in his gaze that he didn't notice how his eyes began to shine. It's just a pity he doesn't realize that she is much more cunning and smarter than he could have imagined. While he was saying how beautiful she was and resisting in vain, the girl kicked him in the leg with her heel so hard that he didn't even feel the pain at first. And when it had already surged, he curled up into a ball and couldn't let go of his leg. While he was silent, she made it clear that one more bad word in her direction and the next blow would be a little higher. At that moment, she thinks that, as the demonic sword says, this time it is not necessary to endure. So she did. If she plays the role of a wayward genius eccentric, then she must show character. Without it, there is no way. And now she asked if he wanted some kind of light massage, or maybe he had already changed his mind. It sounded nice, but he didn't really like it. He began to order her to remove her leg, otherwise he would report to the commander and get the appointment canceled. Ikenacha immediately allowed him to do this, only warned that he would also have to tell the entire conversation from beginning to end, so that the commander would better understand what was being discussed. For example, the way he hinted to her about night service and massage, which has nothing to do with training. He started saying that she didn't have a single witness who could prove that he told her that. Suddenly, out of nowhere, some guy appears, who with a smile on his face says that he will be the witness. At first, the girl was glad that he somehow appeared here, and then she asked who he was. He introduced himself. His name is Barak. He is a third-year student, and he heard this conversation while he was having lunch nearby. Ikenacha asked what Boris would say to this, but he remained silent because since there was a witness, there was no point in him doing anything in trying to take revenge on her. Meanwhile, the girl asked him if he wants to apologize for something or maybe say something. Boris didn't even bother to look her in the eye. He said that he was not guilty of anything and she would never prove his guilt. For some reason, she suddenly decided to feel sorry for him, let go of the sword and asked him to just leave here so that she would never see him again. She just asked him to watch his language in the future. Otherwise, next time she won't be so kind and he will answer according to his merits, as is customary here. Boris immediately ran away, shouting in a trembling voice that she would regret it. But from the outside, it was just funny. Nothing more. Barak smiles. He thinks that it was possible to hit this teacher harder, to which she replied that she thinks that it is enough for a warning, but if it happens again next time, he will be in trouble. And then he says that he will probably look after her until she becomes a full-fledged knight, and just in case, he asked her to treat him normally and not think that he is as strange as that Boris. He saw that she was a little nervous, said that everything was fine. She didn't have to worry because he was doing all this, because he needed her. His lord, second in command of the knights, and since she is his squire, they will often have to work together, so it would be better if he taught her a few things beforehand. For some reason, Ikenacha was so carried away by Yuri that she didn't think about it at all. In that case, she will have to meet more often with other sword owners, and in the meantime, the guy asked to follow him because he has something for her. She agreed because she had nothing else to do anyway, and at least this way, there was a guarantee that Boris wouldn't stop coming to her. As they walk, she looks at him and thinks that the more she watches him, the stranger it all seems. After all, with such a striking appearance and being a squire, he should have remained in her memory, but this did not happen. While they were walking, they didn't notice how clouds appeared in the sky. They were so dark that it would probably rain soon. He, as usual, took the situation into his own hands, thought about what could be done, asked the girl to stay put. He himself is running away to the hostel for now, and he still hasn't explained anything to her. The lady agreed. After all, there is no point in her running away for now, and he doesn't irritate her so much that she would leave him, taking advantage of the opportunity. And then she remembered when she was chased by the sword owners and locked in an underground prison. On rainy days, the guards told one story. They talked about the fact that the commander was probably also at the cemetery that day, despite the fact that there was a thunderstorm outside. Then someone said that 3 years had already passed, but that battle with the demonic creatures felt like it was yesterday. Then the damage was very severe. Even the squire of the second in command died on that terrible day. This year, Barak will die while hunting demonic creatures, which means she knows the future. The girl decided that she would try to change something, at least what was in her power, as much as possible. At the time he returned, she was still thinking about the fact that the future could be changed, at least things like the death of Barak. The owners of the swords close to him know about his death, so if something changes, it will be possible to check who has the memories. Meanwhile, he gives her homework for today. It is a squire's textbook with the experience of the elders. It must be kept and passed on to future junior squires. After that, he urgently needed to go to the Lord. He said goodbye to her, and she, of course, thanked him for everything he did for her. The guy almost forgot, asked her to come to the training field tomorrow because he would not have time to look for her in the morning. The girl apologized for keeping him, but still she needed to ask if she could participate in the spring hunt for demonic creatures. He replied that it would be difficult this time. She would still be an intern on May 10th, and he didn't think anyone would take an intern who wasn't even a full-fledged squire. She asked if there was another way to arrange this, and he couldn't help but be amazed at her persistence. It was surprising to him that she wanted to get her first combat experience so much, to which she replied that, in fact, for someone who handles the ball, it was absolutely natural. It was obvious to him that she wasn't even obsessed with the sword, but she didn't think it was that obvious and asked if she was just being obvious. Since she needs it so much, in that case, he can only offer one thing, and she is already listening to him attentively. She'll have to somehow get into the top 3 at the upcoming rookie tournament, but he won't be able to help her with that. The guy warned that hunting demonic creatures is a serious matter, almost like a real fight. But even beginners, if they are in the top 3, are given a chance to participate. She replied that she was counting on his help during the hunt, and he was very happy to hear it from her and suggested that they say goodbye. The guy admitted that he was very pleased to meet her. He thought that she was not interesting, but she turned out to be special and quite a good conversationalist. When she was already alone, she began to talk to the sword and said that since she had become a squire, there was no point in holding back. She needs to show her strength in such a way that there will be no more unnecessary talk, and she is very determined to do this. Sword asked that since she was so angry, why didn't she do it the easy way and just destroy them? To which she replied that she didn't want to be a villain. And he seems to start to anger her on purpose, saying that if she has destroyed someone before, it means that she will forever remain a villain, even if she does not harm anyone in the next 10 years. Echinacea was late. She simply replied that he had no right to say that, so some people should just keep quiet. Each owner of the demon's sword has their own special power, and for the first time she learned about the power of Gyos. After awakening his consciousness, when she was looking for information, thanks to a meeting with a backstreet information dealer. When the wielder of the Gyos loses his vigilance or sanity, or feels the urge to destroy someone, the sword uses this dark power to control the wielder, and finds the best way to destroy someone, putting it into practice. But as soon as the girl thinks about it, she feels uneasy. Throwing wood on the fire, the sword reminds that in general this unfulfilled thirst continues to accumulate, just as he hasn't done anything like that for a long time, and will soon find any opportunity to do so. Therefore, it is advised to think better about who you can get rid of, so that it would be at least a little fair and not as ruthless as it might be. He says that this is actually very good advice, but she can't listen to it anymore. She even hit her hand on purpose so that it would hurt him through her. From now on, she will decide everything herself and will never again allow these pieces of advice to cloud her mind, as it usually did. Meanwhile, as soon as the girl entered the room, her neighbor met her and said that some telegram had arrived. She put it on the table and offered to check it, but she herself was apparently getting ready to go somewhere and was sure that this was clearly not for her. Echinacea wanted to say hello to her, to ask her something, but the girl passed by with such coldness that she didn't want to say anything else. Then she opened the letter. It says, "We are keeping an eye on you. I'm not sure, but you can see the trace of a white lion." The letter is from Nicholas Sisden. Silver lion, this is the coat of arms of the imperial house of the Carey Empire, which means that the imperial family, maybe it's somehow connected with the demonic sword, but that's already very interesting information and a good clue. A few days later, Echinacea came to the teacher. He began by saying that he had heard it said that she became a squire because of her beauty, to which she replied that if they were even a little smarter, they wouldn't be talking such nonsense. And since these rumors would quickly die down, they could ignore it, and he agreed with her. It's better to focus on the squire's main duty at this time, taking care of the horses, and the guy also suggested that this particular horse likes to be cleaned more vigorously. And he also said that the squire mainly looks after the Lord's horse, so it's better to practice on it right away. Among them is the sylph, the commander's favorite, quite calm, easy to look after, and, in general, very beautiful. The girl asked if he had ever done this, to which he replied that he had previously been the temporary squire of the commander, and before he could finish speaking, he noticed that her clothes were dirty. I wanted to do something about it. She said that it was nothing serious. It was just a thing that could be washed later. The more the guy looks at her, the more he understands that her appearance and character are completely different. She dresses as if she would never set foot in a stable, but in reality, she doesn't care at all if something gets dirty. Now he realized that it was just her style, and she could be anything she wanted despite her appearance. This is another case where appearances can be deceiving. Here the girl has already moved on to the horse's mane. She asks what to do with it. Can she really just comb it? And that's it. To which he said that it was a bit wrong. First, you need to untangle the tangled places with your fingers. Otherwise, everything will break. While he was saying all this, he looked at her and caught himself thinking that she was so beautiful and unique that he was starting to like it. Meanwhile, he showed how it was done, after which she herself came to try, because she had never done it before. He gladly allowed her to do this. He even became interested to see how quickly she would understand what was what. When suddenly a man came to them whom no one expected to see here. Although there is nothing wrong with that, but still it is all very awkward. This is the commander. He came to tell you that the Baron is looking for the bastard, so he better go to him right now and not keep him waiting. And he also came for his horse, which was almost ready, and the commander also asked how the squire's preparatory training had gone. The guy said that they were just cleaning the horse and the girl was doing poorly. He wanted to say something else, but the commander reminded him that the Baron was waiting for him, so it was better to hurry. Naturally, he immediately listened to the commander, and on the way he remembered how she behaved in front of him, as if she was not afraid of anything. And when the commander came, it was immediately clear how tense she was, that she was even afraid to look anyone in the eye. It seemed to him that the matter might be that the commander was scaring her, and if he thought so, then it was for the best. At least he, like others, did not think that there could be something between these two, and that because of this, she was now in this place. Before the guy leaves, he tells her that if his challenge to a duel was a burden to her, then she can forget about it. And she replied that actually it wasn't like that. For her, it wouldn't be a big deal at all, but on the contrary, it was a great honor. After this, the girl thanked him for the coat he had given her yesterday and promised to return it as soon as she had time. Meanwhile, Echinacea asked if she could ask him one question, because if she didn't, it would torment her for a very long time. She reminded him that he said he saw her at last year's birthday party, so she wants to know how he knows her. He answered very quickly that she just caught his eye, and after that, the girl began to think how this could have happened. Although at the very least, it could be her pink hair, because there are few people around who could have hair like that. Then he apologized for deceiving her a little, and admitted that it was personal interest, while touching her hair as if he wanted to hint at something. The girl asked what it meant, and he said with a smile that he would answer this question right after the fight, because it will be much more interesting and she will have an incentive to come, as they agreed. Although she was a little unhappy, she still agreed because he was already doing too much for her. The guy saw that she was a little upset and said that if she didn't want to, he wouldn't force her. But he wants her to know that he desperately wants a duel with her. And after these words, she will even more hesitate to refuse him. Then they said goodbye. He wished her all the best. Only Yuri went a few meters away. The sword spoke to her and called him a guy. Echinacea asked not to call him a guy. He is a commander after all. And during his absence, she would not like to remember this man once again and worry. She also asked him to keep quiet because if he continued, she would just explode with anger, and then he would be to blame for it. The lady says that in any case, the demon extermination will happen soon. Then she will see how he will deal with the Elder Barak, and she will understand everything. If Yuri still has memories, he will never let the Elder Barak die, no matter what happens. Before she had time to be alone, some girl came to her and said from the doorway that the cadet was Echinacea and had decided to wear a dress today. She is already a little tired of these unexpected meetings. She would like to be calm, but it doesn't work out. The girl tells her to join some club, and she doesn't even know what to tell her, because she doesn't know whether she needs it or not. Now it's clear why she came with such a smile. She's just advertising one of the wisdom clubs. She started with how beautiful it sounds and asked if she doesn't feel the spirit of intellectuals in it who will lead the Ajenka forward. Then she added that they were not just knights who relied on brute force. They were wise knights, and if Echinacea joined them, she promised she would become the same. It's just strange that Fatima Toya from the second year is the only one who still invites her, because other clubs, having heard about her, don't even come close. Echinacea replied that she had no intention of joining anything in the first place and asked not to offer her anything like that again because she would not change her mind. Fatima turned out to be more persistent than one might think. She tries to explain that everyone refuses at first and then regrets that it was too late to agree. And as the first president of the Wisdom Club, she feels that echinacea is truly incredible and needed by their club. She believes that it will be better for everyone. And what are the advantages of this? The girl will be able to understand only after joining, because according to the rules, it is impossible to talk about this right away. The choice should be made by intuition and not by some calculations and for the sake of profit. In any case, even though everyone is annoying with their constant invitations and conversations, she is still pleased that, for example, Fatima does not pay attention to rumors. And then the girl says that echinacea is their #1 target, after which she wonders who else is on this list. Fatima replied that they were currently monitoring 3 candidates: the owner of Giosa, the younger brother of Miss Therese von Frank Almari, and Cadet Mikkel. Then the girl asked who the third one was, to which Fatima said that she thought echinacea should know the answer to this question. This is her roommate, Cadet Alice Winterbell. It's just a shame that she looks like that now, in a creative. Echinacea couldn't even imagine that this person could have some kind of crisis. She can't even imagine how this could happen to her. After that, the friend asked the girl if she knew about the 9th training hall in the forest, where Alice usually trains, in case she wanted to meet her. The girl also secretly said that, according to her assumptions, it was after their joint duel on the first day that the neighbor's crisis began. Before this, she hadn't really thought about it. But now she was wondering what would be the best thing to do, to meet with her, or to pretend that she didn't suspect anything and didn't consider herself guilty. Fatima believes that since she gave her advice, when the girls become friends, they should join the Wisdom Club and thank her for it. Then she went about her business, and in the meantime, echinacea was already watching her neighbor, who was just throwing out all her energy in the forest. Even from the outside, it is very clear that her sword has really lost its way and has become uncertain. Only if Alice is told about this, it will probably only get worse. Alice's sword used to be fast, precise, honed, graceful, like a skillful carving, but now it feels hesitant even from a distance. Echinacea thinks that this could very well be the consequences of their duel, and she wants to do something about it. You just need to erase her trace from the neighbor's blade. But if it were that simple, she wouldn't have fallen into crisis so quickly. And the girl also understands that interfering with someone else's path of the sword would be disrespectful. Besides, advice from her, who hasn't even studied fencing, Alice will be able to perceive it as an insult. It would probably have been better to leave without interfering, but the lady simply couldn't hold back and suddenly appeared in front of her. She finally decided that since she had left a trace, she had to erase it herself so that at least her conscience would remain clear. The girl stands in front of her as if nothing happened, and Alice didn't even react. Probably just didn't realize what happened. It is clear that she was pouring out her hatred here because of her, and now to see her neighbor in front of her, and at such a moment, is very simple. She gathered all her emotions together and asked what the girl was doing here, because no one invited her here. The lady smiled sweetly and calmly, suggested sparring. Just for fun, as in their case, it would be very useful. Alice stepped back and said that this was the rudest challenge she had ever received. It even sounded strange to interrupt training and immediately demand a fight. Echinacea apologized and then explained that she saw this training and could not pass by. Yuri, since such an opportunity had arisen, she began to speak out everything that had been accumulating inside her all this time. Namely, that interrupting training was much more impolite than calling, and if a fencer does not observe etiquette and rules, then he is no different from a bandit from the gateway. The lady politely replied that she would be more careful in the future and asked again whether he was going to fight her or not. She feels that the girl will not be able to refuse. The neighbor probably has a desire for revenge, and she will do it. The girl accepted the challenge. She even had a sparkle in her eyes. Then she gave her opponent a sword and warned that she was well warmed up. She also asked echinacea to stop smiling like that, but the girl on the contrary smiled even more, but only for the benefit of her neighbor so that she would get angry and they still defeat her. Then the lady came very close, blocked her sword, and suggested to start without ceremony, to attack immediately as if their main enemy in life was in front of them. Alice replied that this time she was not going to spare anyone. She would give it her all, as if this was the most important fight in her life. At first, the girl was very confident in herself, but now she noticed that, unlike last time, it was somehow difficult to defend herself. And no matter how she fights back, Ekanisha does not lose her balance and immediately takes the correct stance, as if she has completely studied her opponent and knows his steps in advance. And she also moves very quickly. Alice starts to get lost. She thinks in advance that she is lost, and because of this, she loses her vigilance. Ekanisha is breaking through so much that the girl is already thinking about whether to stop this fight in advance so as not to get another injury later. It's very offensive to her that her neighbor didn't even practice before this, but acts as if this is all she did. And then she notices that the lady starts using a very familiar technique that Alice knows very well, but for some reason this time she completely forgot about it. The technique of smoothly sliding along the opponent's blade. This is one of the secret techniques of real professionals. It's exactly the same as the one Alice used in their recent duel. Only then she didn't have enough time and speed. Then she realized that she was a little mistaken. It was not the same technique, just very similar. But still, it upsets her. Graceful movements, sharp and fast attacks, even feints and moves. She brought her fencing style to perfection. There is nothing good about this. Alice feels much weaker, as if she has not done anything all these years and came to training for the first time. The girl fell to the floor. She has no strength. She is completely exhausted mentally and physically, because once again, she is disappointed in herself. It's weird that Ekanisha came up to her again and asked her to continue, as if that meant anything. The lady showed everything she could, but it's not clear yet what she wants to say with this. Is she really planning to teach her something by her own example? She thinks that if she were like Boris, she would either go berserk without even realizing what she did, or if she weren't so serious about fencing, she would be very angry right now. The girl takes her sword in her hands, asks what they will do next, but if Alice is against it, then she can leave right now and will not force. Unexpectedly, but she first got up, took her sword very firmly and said that everything was fine in such a voice as if there would be a harsh answer now. She asked to continue, and now she looks as if she hadn't just fallen off her feet, which means that she is very strong in spirit. And then Alice says that she always thought that Ekanisha wasn't interested in the sword and wasn't serious about the knight's way. After that, she asked for forgiveness for judging her by little things in appearance. But as it turned out, she is the one who treats the sword more seriously than anyone else. Even from afar, you can see that the neighbor's gaze has changed compared to how it was literally half an hour ago. He sparkles with the discovery of something new. This look, full of sincere gratitude and, most importantly, respect. Meanwhile, Ekanisha returned to the room to tidy herself up. The girl was sweating a little, and now she needs to do something about it. In general, she wanted to take a shower, but she doesn't even have the strength to lift her hand, so this time she uses her ability, which will do everything for her. The sword, as usual, starts to say something, but she is so tired that she doesn't even understand what he is talking about. Meanwhile, the next day came. She came to the stable as expected, and her teacher was already saying that he thought she would be in the top 3. The guy also noticed that she had become too relaxed lately. It was as if she was evaluating her competitors and thought that she had nothing left to learn. The girl replied that she was not underestimating at all. She just knew her abilities well, and so far there was nothing she couldn't do. He says he likes that kind of confidence, although he just tried to say that it's wrong. Somehow strange. Ekanisha had already combed the horse's mane, asked what to do next, and he thought that, for today perhaps, that was enough. After all, there was a tournament tomorrow and he needed to save his strength. Even though the girl didn't exert herself much today, she was very tired from the heat. She thought she'd cool down first, and then she'd probably go and rest. The problem is that she is unaccustomed to doing something that her business is not yet accustomed to, but there is nothing to be done about it. She thought she would be alone, in silence, but someone came up to her again. This time an older man. He said that he had just met with a barrack and thought that she would be near the stable. Of all the people, it was this guy who approached her, the one she least wanted to see, but it would be wrong to leave him too. He started by saying that it was about the upcoming beginners tournament, and since they had no track record, the tournament grid was determined by Lottie. He suggests that she draw lots from a bag, but from the outside it will look a little funny. She got the number 8, and what he said was that unfortunately she was a little unlucky, and she asked him to explain what that meant. She will have her first opponent, whom she probably knows, is older, and he didn't even have time to finish this sentence. But she already understood everything. Cadet Mikhail, the younger brother of Miss Teresa, the owner of Gyoza, was indeed unlucky, but not a little, but a lot. On the day she was defeated by the demonic sword, he was one of those she destroyed in Ajenka. A fair-haired knight hugging a dead young man who looked like her and sobbing, this picture still stands vividly in my memory. The guy warned that if she won, her next opponent would be Cadet Alice, her neighbor. The girl thought that since Alice was next, it meant that the tournament grid was completely random, and after that, she thanked the elder and wished him a good day, and right after that, I felt a very familiar aura that can only be found in one person. Yuri is approaching her, although maybe he is not going towards her and will just pass by as if he does not notice her. She has a question because if he came for the sylph, he would have gone to the stable. So it is strange that he went to the well. Did he come to check if she was a demon with a demonic sword or not? Which is quite possible. Then frequent meetings make sense. From his point of view, there is a villain walking around who can break loose at any moment. But if he has no memories, then it can only be a personal interest, which is precisely what confuses her very much. If suddenly, as he said, he has been personally following her since last year's holiday, such romantic stories do not happen. Meanwhile, the senior came back to her again. He came to say that it seems that Cadet Boris wants to apologize to her because he asked him to arrange a meeting for an apology. He tells her that of course she can safely refuse because there is no obligation to accept an apology just because someone wants to apologize. The girl thought that it was unlikely that the guy was sincerely repentant. It looked more like some kind of strategy, so first she asked the elder when exactly Boris was suggesting to meet. The guy says that if possible, it should happen tonight. And these words were accidentally heard by Yuri. He came up and asked if something had happened between the cadets, and if so, it was important for him to know about it. The guy started to tell that there really was a small quarrel between the cadets, but that wasn't enough. Yuri wants to know what exactly happened because he believes that he should know about everything that happens in this area. Ichikanesha thought that there was probably no need to tell Yuri what Ivan and Boris were planning, so she said that it was a personal matter and she didn't want to discuss it. Moreover, they are not close enough to him to burden him with their problems because he probably has enough of his own. In the end, she said that if someone wants to apologize, let that someone come to her in person because she is not going to look for him. The guy said that he would immediately pass this information on to Boris. And after that, Yuri asked if he had any business left with Cadet Echinacea because he needs to talk to her. But he said it in such a voice that the girl already tensed up. The elder says that he leaves them alone. He has a lot of other things to do. He said goodbye and wished everyone a good day. Out of the blue, Yuri says that he should help her, but she didn't say a word to him about the fact that she needs it. She asked him to explain what it meant, and he reacted as if she had misheard and he hadn't said anything. Then he calmly asked her to follow him because he knows that she will not refuse him and, of course, will obey. She keeps walking behind him, wondering what he has planned, because this man doesn't even have a rough idea of what happened to her. If it weren't for all this, she would have fallen into bed long ago and fallen asleep until someone woke her up. She likes to look at his back, and especially at his hair, which is like silver threads that you can look at forever. Here they have already arrived somewhere. He asked her to wait here a little, and she can't wait to understand what is happening. Ichinacea already feels her body heat up. She touched her face and regretted it because it only got worse. Her face is so wet that it would be better if she didn't touch it at all. And in the meantime, Yuri brought some kind of package. Echinacea doesn't understand what it is, she tries to guess, but nothing is clear from its appearance. She didn't waste time on it. She just asked what it was, and for some reason he asked her not to overexert herself. It turns out there was a mask that only knights of the azure sky can use, as well as antibiotic syrup and ginger tea with honey. It looks like a gift, but still somehow strange, because even the senior Barak, who was with her all morning, did not notice that she was sick, but Yuri somehow understood it at first glance. At the moment when the guy walked away for a while, the sword spoke to her. He says that she blushed and from the outside looks like she is very embarrassed. All this time has passed somehow strangely for her. Now that very moment has come. She is standing on the battlefield and preparing to become the winner. It's also responsible that she doesn't even fully realize that there is no way back. No one will let her defeat her opponent a second time. If she loses, then she loses forever and destroys her authority. Dom Frank Almari specializes in a defensive style of fencing, but allows for a powerful counterattack after a parry. The guy now thinks that his sister achieved the title of master and owner of Gyoza with this style, so he decided to use exactly the same one. He looks at his opponent. He is very distracted by this outfit and the pink hair that catches the eye, as if a distraction. He promised himself that he would fight to the last, but he would defeat this invincible girl, and then he got angry at himself for calling her that, thereby humiliating himself. As usual, the opponent has a very serious look, and hers is so calm, as if this training is not the main fight. She seems to be hypnotizing the guy with her gaze and also deliberately shows that she has nothing to worry about. As practice shows, this technique works well, so much so that after a couple of seconds, his sword flew out of his hands, and this immediately means defeat. She was announced the winner. There was no emotion on her face, as if it meant nothing to her, but the loser seemed to have lost the meaning of further life. He asked himself how he could have allowed this to happen. There is only anger in his eyes, as if he is about to burst from the inside. Like any other person in his place, he ran away so as not to be disgraced and so that no one would see his tears. A friend ran up to him. He sees that he clearly needs support because leaving a person in such a state is very wrong and dangerous. You never know what he might do to himself after that. He started telling him that everything is fine, life doesn't end there, everyone makes mistakes and there's no need to worry so much about it, to which he replies that it wasn't a mistake. The guy asked what it meant, to which he replied that if he didn't understand something, he shouldn't get involved in it. And he also called him a puppy, although they were actually trying to support him, and it was very ugly of him. He now perceives everyone around him as his enemies. He is not going to listen to anyone, and he thinks to himself that for the first time he saw a person as invincible as his sister. Only he does not know anything that Ikanasiya is much stronger than her, and very soon she will show it to everyone. Then he seemed to forget how he had just behaved with this man, called him to come back. Apparently he wants to watch the next fight from the side, as a spectator. He says that he can't miss a single one of her fights because maybe from the outside he sees some techniques that he will later use against her. A friend asks if it's not a shame to go back and watch the winner fight. Well, the guy replied that when this tournament is over, no one will consider it a shame to lose to her. Meanwhile, the girl remembers how she destroyed Mikhail, although she remembers little from that strange day. She remembers only sobs that sounded like a beast howl, and her pride shattered into pieces in different directions. She is very happy that she can see them both alive. After all, it really was worth turning back time. Mikhail took his sister as a role model, but the defensive style of fencing seems to be a bit out of character for him. When suddenly a neighbor unexpectedly approached her, she came to say that the girl fought well. She showed a completely different side than during sparring with her. Ikanasha reminded that they had actually agreed to address each other by name, and Alice was once again speaking too formally. She admitted that she just wasn't ready for it yet, and in the meantime, the girl asked if her neighbors knew that they would be against each other in the second round, to which Alice replied that, of course, she had been looking forward to this moment since the very first day of the draw. Meanwhile, they've already entered the ring. Alice is a little nervous, but tries not to show it, but Ikanasha is just waiting for this to end and finally rest. She doesn't even think about who will win, because she is so confident in herself. This time, all the viewers think that Ekanesha will win because they saw how easily it did last time. But Alice still doesn't worry. She's apparently well prepared and will even react calmly to defeat. The girl is now looking into the eyes of her opponent. She is thinking whether she should play along, but at the same time, she remembers how they will treat her if she wins everyone she fights. Then she decided that here everyone is for himself, maybe, but only outside the ring. And this was a very correct decision. Ikanasha just wondered what the probability was that someone else would have acted the way she did. There was simply no such probability. It was impossible. No one would ever give in to her at such a crucial moment when literally the entire future depends on it. People started to discuss the lady. Now they think that the commander probably knew more about her than the others, and that's probably why he appointed her squire. Meanwhile, the girl has already won first place, but unlike other similar competitions in previous years, she is the first one who reacts to it as calmly as if she was just invited to breakfast. The reaction is literally no different. The senior approached her, congratulated her on her victory, and said that until the next tournament, or she was the first among the first-year students, and for sure at the general tournament, everyone would be nervous, and in the upper ones it would start. She answered him that it looked very much like he was flattering her. She wanted to get back as soon as possible, and they were constantly pestering her along the way. Although she understood that it was normal and even pleasant, she had no time for it now. And then he says that now he understands exactly why the commander appointed her squire. He just saw her talent as soon as he saw her. He is very interested to know what her secret is because he has never heard that the Rose House was famous for anything like that. He asks her to at least say who she studied with, because some already have doubts that the commander is her teacher. But these are only rumors, which are important to verify, to which she replied that she is self-taught and is proud of it. He can't believe that she mastered the sword herself, because judging by himself, it seems like something impossible. And maybe it's just a matter of talent. The girl talked to him a little out of politeness, and then said that she wanted to go already because she was very tired. After which the guy apologized if he kept her and said that he was grateful that she made time for him. Meanwhile, Echinacea didn't even have time to turn around. Alice had already approached her, but she couldn't tell her that she wanted to leave. After all, her neighbor had lost, and she needed to be calmed down or supported somehow. The girl asks how she feels. She has a rating that is too low for her abilities, but surprisingly, she says that everything is not scary, because she got something more important than just a rating, and for now she decided to focus on honing her technique. This is a truly chivalrous answer. She is honest and sincere with herself, not like people like, for example, Ivanhoe. Echinacea told her that she wanted her to become a Knight of the Azure Sky because she was fit for knighthood, and it showed. Until now, the girl considered fencing only a technique for effective villainy, but when she crossed swords with Alice, everything was different. It turned out that she is imbued with the spirit of Alice, who takes the sword seriously and honestly. Yes, there are those who take it not for something bad, but for protection, as there are those who take the sword for self-improvement, regardless of others. Echinacea warned for the future that if she needed to, she could say goodbye to her for sparring at any time, because crossing swords with her was only a joy. It was so nice to hear that the girl's cheeks turned red. Just a couple of days ago, she couldn't even imagine that they would communicate with her so pleasantly. They talked as if a couple more meetings like this, and they would become best friends, and maybe even tomorrow. Alice says that she is incredibly glad that she met a person like her, because now next to her, there is a real example to follow. They even went to rest together, agreed that if they didn't change their minds, they could drink tea together to properly relax after such a hard day. Meanwhile, the knights gathered near some notice board. They discussed that this time the monster hunt is much larger than usual, and it seems that this is an order from the commander. Judging by the number of people, this year will be very difficult, and some are already wondering what is going on in the gorge that there is so much noise around it. The knights are also interested in seeing how the same trio that has set a good level recently will perform. Meanwhile, the girls are sitting drinking tea. The senior barman comes up to them. He came to say what he didn't have time to say last time, namely that getting to the first place in the rating is impressive, and he never thought that this person would be a girl. How can they help? Or maybe he just came. To which the guy replied that it was nothing special. He just saw the ad and came to tell them to prepare properly. Because no matter how good they are, for both of them, this is the first real fight, so it's not a joke anymore. Alice agrees, but as far as she knows, the Knights of the Azure Sky usually send students on request. But this trip seems different. Every spring, in addition to their main quests, the Knights of the Azure Sky select a region where monsters are particularly active and carry out a cleanup. At the same time, they demonstrate their strength there, and the target is the Gorge of the White Baron. If this is the place, then last summer it became a battlefield. It is located on the border, and it was used for ambushes. Everyone knows that such places, where many people died, soon become a lair of monsters forever. In the past life, the Knight of the Azure Sky were destroyed, and the country suffered greatly from monsters. The guy says that this time the commander and 3 owners of Gios will participate, and for the girls it is a good opportunity to gain experience, so he advises them to keep up. And then Echinacea thought that since he was here and discussing this topic with them, it meant that he was also participating. She even asked him about it, and he replied that, in fact, he was the squire of the second in command. So naturally, he would be with them. Something is definitely going to happen. She needs to make sure that people she doesn't know, including these two, don't die. And we also need to find out if there are any owners of the GEOs who remember the erased past. This is very important. May 12, 1629 era, White Raven Gorge entrance. There the girl in her past life found out that she was assigned to Commander Yuri and asked several times so that it wouldn't turn out that she misunderstood something. She was asked why she was so surprised, because she was his squire and there were only 8 days left until the end of the probationary period, so it was natural. On that trip, she had to stay close to the Lord and help him. The girl was worried because she was not as confident in herself as she is now. Even then, the demonic sword did not allow her to stand still. It distracted her and pushed her to strange actions, to which she miraculously did not agree. Meanwhile, everything happens exactly the same as last time. Only her goal is to change something, namely, so that there is as little death as possible. Everyone had already managed to set up tents, set up something like a small camp, where they would stay for a couple of days. Even though nothing like that is happening, there is a sense of apprehension in the air, because no matter how strong the people around you are, the unknown is what scares you the most. No one knows what to expect in just a few minutes, and maybe nothing like that will happen until the very end. And they will return safe and sound. It's just impossible to predict. Echinacea has chosen a strategy to preserve its strength as much as possible for now, so that if something happens, when there is a real danger, it can save not only itself, but also others. She really likes the views here. It's so peaceful around that she can't believe that she'll soon have to fight for her life. It is absolutely always very beautiful here, especially at night when the stars appear in the sky. It is simply incredible. Some even say that for this, it is sometimes worth risking your life. Echinacea has already entered her tent. She has some ambiguous feelings. Everything around is too calm, and this makes her wary. She understands that she has only one chance to change everything, and it will happen at an unknown moment. Even after a hard journey, it is very difficult to pull yourself together and fully control your strength, which is already running out. She went outside to admire this beauty. There is nothing like that around, just the starry sky, which captivates from the first seconds. If she goes back, she will miss it very much. In these couple of hours, Echinacea has become so accustomed to this nature that she can no longer imagine how one can live without it. It's a pity that they are all here for a short time. When they were here, Yuri gave her his jacket, and now she suddenly wanted to give it back. The girl did not wait until the next day, decided to sneak up to him at night without even thinking. What if now is not the time? He hardly imagines that someone might come to him in the middle of the night just to give him a jacket. She went to him without permission, and he was sitting on the bed, and just his silhouette scared her. Only now she thought that maybe she should have knocked. Suddenly he was in a bad mood or something, and in the end she would regret it. The guy lit a couple of candles after all. It would be much more comfortable to talk this way, and it also means that he is not going to let her go quickly. Yuri recognized her as soon as she appeared here. He saw her long hair and had no doubt that it was her. The guy asked what business she came for, and it is also very important for him that no one sees that she came to him at such a time, because it can raise a lot of questions. Echinacea was confused at first, but then she thought that since she was already here, she had nothing to lose. She needed to give this thing away and go back. The girl apologized if she had disturbed him and said that perhaps she shouldn't have come at such a time, although she thought about it several times along the way and still didn't change her mind. He didn't react to her words. Yuri just stared at one point, as if hinting that it was time for her to leave. Then he came up to her, started to take his jacket, but he did it in such a way that he very gently touched her hands and ran his hands over them very slowly, as if on purpose. The girl noticed this, but kept silent because maybe she just imagined it, and with some questions, she could only make things worse. All in all, she has a feeling that today he is somehow not the same as usual, but she has no idea how exactly this manifests itself. And suddenly he says that he has one question for her, but he only asked her to answer it honestly in advance. Did she really come just to return this thing? She replied that it was so, and she wondered what was wrong with that, because it was quite normal that she couldn't fall asleep quickly in nature. After all, it wasn't the comfort she was used to. After that, in order not to remain silent, she thanked him for the medicine and ginger tea that he gave her last time. Yuri thought about it a lot. He hoped that tea would help, and he is very glad that everything turned out that way. And he smiled so much that she felt even more awkward. It was as if he was opening up to her in a different way. On the one hand, it was stressful, but on the other hand, it was even pleasant. At that moment, before it was too late, Echinacea said that it was time for her to leave. She thought that he wouldn't even tell her anything. But the commander asked her to wait and said that he had one more question, but asked her in advance not to be afraid. Namely, has she ever encountered demons? Just hearing this word, Echinacea is already tense. Nowhere else. It seems to her that he doesn't ask about it just like that. And each time he tries to put pressure on her so that she would be ashamed of deceiving him and so that she would finally confess everything. When she was controlled by the demon's sword, demons were born in every ruin she passed. So during the time she was collecting Gyosu, she had to hunt demons a lot. And one day she was sucked in there, and she suffered a lot. But most likely, it's better not to tell anyone about it, especially Yuri. She thought of something to say and replied that of course she had encountered them and wouldn't even mind telling how it was. When fighting demons, there are many differences from fighting people, and to some extent she even studied it. To which he replied that he did not doubt her mastery of the sword, but still, she would like to ask her not to go far from him because demons are unpredictable creatures, and even he sometimes does not know what to expect from them. It was very surprising for her to hear that he had no doubts about her skill, although she had never seen him see her handle it. Yuri replied that he actually saw her take the entrance exams and knew the results of the tournament, for which he would like to praise her separately. Echinacea responded very briefly, thanked him for his high rating, apologized for disturbing his rest, and immediately left. He says he wasn't going to sleep, so it's okay, and it also sounds like he's hinting that she shouldn't rush to leave. By some miracle, she managed to get out of there. They even said goodbye normally, and now she's already heading to her tent. Sometimes she finds it funny when he behaves, but the main thing is that they have a normal relationship. Everything else is not so important. She thought about going to bed as soon as possible, taking advantage of the opportunity to have a good rest, but thoughts about Yuri haunt her. She wonders why he had that expression on his face and what he was thinking when he said certain words that clearly had a hidden meaning. That night she had a dream. In a luxurious ballroom, she was dancing with someone. It's just a pity, his face. She only noticed that he was clearly smiling and was so warm and caring that tears involuntarily welled up in her eyes. Meanwhile, the next day came. Everyone lined up behind the commander and swore to listen to his every order and carry out everything he said, unquestioningly. The weather is not very good today, but what can you do? The mission must be accomplished and nothing and no one should interfere with it. They have already gone too far. There is too much ominous, negative energy here, as if it has permeated every corner here. Her partners often ask her how she feels because they are not here for the first time, but this is the first time she encounters this. They, like men, want to show that they can be relied upon, but Echinacea decided from the very beginning that she would rely on herself so as not to distract anyone and not ask for help. She herself is not against helping someone, but she would not like to waste the energy and time of others with her problems. When the elder stopped in one place, the girl asked if he would not go with them, to which he replied that he would stay in the camp with the master because someone had to guard this place. According to the original script, Barak was supposed to die during this purge, but she doesn't know how exactly it happened. The only clue is that it all happened on a rainy night, so at least she still has time to prevent it. If only she knew how to do it. Finally, he smiled and asked what she was so worried about. Because you could tell from her eyes that she seemed to be afraid of someone. The guy wished her good luck and asked her not to go far from the commander. It remains to be hoped that they will cope quickly and manage to return before nightfall, so that she will have at least some chance to save him. Meanwhile, the monsters are already attacking from all sides. They all turned out to be so fast, as if they had also been training for this moment. Some of them were very easy to deal with, but half of them were so resilient that it took some effort. They say that the enemies were doused with boiling oil, so it is not surprising that there are so many demonic creatures here. One of the knights said that no matter how many of them there were, in front of the master, they were just walking scarecrows. He deals with them so skillfully that he doesn't even show any emotions. He just needs to stand still, and anyone who approaches him dies immediately. He apparently developed his own tactics for this case, so everything looks like a pre-planned scenario. His eyes are so cold that just one look makes these demons instantly weaken, and they themselves do not notice how it happens. It's very interesting to watch this. Some even have time to rest, but still there are still too many of these demons ahead. It seems that as soon as one of them dies, two new ones immediately appear. It is good that Echinacea is coping so far and is almost not tired. The ancient blacksmith created a blade of human justice and won on it the pattern of human duty. All this can be seen on the sacred sword Langus. It strengthens the power and destroys evil, copper, which becomes stronger against evil creatures. Langios didn't accept her villain. Usually the owner can store and call Gyosu through the engraved pattern, but with Rangios, it is impossible, so you have to carry it on your back. It's a little annoying to realize that she can't use that beautiful white sword, just like Yuri. They say Yuri doesn't have an accompanying squad. It's not surprising that with such abilities he is not needed. Meanwhile, one of the monsters thought that he had crept up on her unnoticed and could attack, and she had been watching him out of the corner of her eye the whole time. And as soon as he approached, she stepped on him with her foot, but she harmed him not only with her weight, but also with the force that she seemed to conduct like electricity through her body right into her foot. At this moment, everyone around her looks at her, especially these two. They say that there is not a speck of dust on her face. It's like she's been doing this her whole life, and they forgot to discuss that she's wearing a dress. And it is much more uncomfortable for her to do all this than for anyone else. And long hair attracts heat very strongly and is also uncomfortable. She notices that there seem to be storm clouds coming in. They don't look good, and they don't know yet how long they need to stay here. Just as she was thinking that it was time to return to the camp because it was getting dangerous, Yuri approached her, as always, at the most unexpected moment. She noticed him out of the corner of her eye. Looked at him, he apparently also doubted to stay here in the downpour. I wonder what he will say about this. After all, he is the commander, and whatever he decides, that is how it will be. He did not think for long, raised his hand for everyone to notice, and said that the weather was getting worse, so it would be better to postpone the daytime cleanup until tomorrow and return to camp as soon as possible. Some agree with him, some don't, but no one said anything out loud because his word is an order that is not discussed. And he also told Echinacea that she had worked hard and especially needed to rest, and better yet, sleep as long as possible. She knew he would say something to her, of course, but she didn't think he seemed so caring, especially after she left him yesterday. When she had free time, she still continued to think about what his goodwill could mean, because there was too much of it on the part of the commander. They are not even friends with him, but he helps her get better. It gives her his clothes when she is cold and, unlike other knights, is much more caring and attentive to her. He may have memories, but without proof, he's just observing. Yuri doesn't know who turned back time. He tries to understand her, the cadet, who was not in the past, and at the same time carefully checks whether she is a demon of the demonic sword, but so far he hasn't succeeded. There is probably no other explanation for his behavior. He is clearly testing her, holding her close and watching until he finds irrefutable evidence. And when he is convinced that she is the demon of the demon ball, as he thought, the girl did not have time to finish this phrase. I saw that Yuri was heading somewhere. Although in such weather, the only thing to do is sit under the roof and not stick his head out. She wondered where he was going because he hadn't told anyone anything. And in this weather, it was too suspicious. He wouldn't go back to the monsters to deal with them alone. Without thinking twice, she decided to follow her because she had nothing else to do anyway, and such surveillance could provide answers to many questions. She has no idea how it will all end, but she thinks it's better than sitting still and doing nothing. And then she remembers that she does have the ability to be invisible, and this is exactly the case when it will come in very handy. Sword asks her if it is necessary to go so far, because if Yuri sees that she is following him, this could permanently lose his trust. She replied that she was not going to follow too far, but that the fact that he was now leaving the barracks was certainly not without reason. Now is just the time when it is possible to find out his goals, and it seems to her that such a risk is absolutely justified, because if she does not do it, then she will deeply and for a long time regret it. Here they are already near some mountains. The guy doesn't notice her yet, although through such fog it would be unnoticeable even if she didn't use her ability. The problem is that sometimes it stops being invisible because the very high humidity in the air somehow affects it. Meanwhile, Yuri goes into some gorges, as if he knows the exact place where he is going, and this is clearly an unusual walk. It seems as if he is looking for something here, and in the meantime, Ikanesha does not think about the fact that all sounds are very loud here, so if she gets up or coughs, he will immediately notice her. The commander constantly touches the walls of the mountain, as if there is something somewhere that you can touch and something will happen. And for some reason, he also took out the Gyosa sword, but it is not yet clear what he is going to do with it, because there is no one here to defend against. At that moment, he points this sword at the wall. Some kind of hole appears there, and through it you can see someone's red eyes. The girl was very scared because it looks too gloomy. But how could Yuri know that there is someone in this place? And at that moment, she understood everything and learned the answer to the question of what killed the senior Barak. Specters are among the most dangerous of the demons. They possess people and control them like puppets. A master-level knight can resist, but the rest are completely defenseless. If the specters had attacked the camp by surprise, many of the fighters who had not reached master level would have been possessed and would have gone on a rampage. Senior Barak fell under their influence. That's why Yuri came here alone. These spectra don't affect him.